This re-upload is a fixed version of the original video. More about it in pinned comment.
Minecraft's bosses, whether in the main game, dungeons, or legends, are in a way a staple for their respective games, defeating them being major hurdles within their stories, and main objectives for most. Especially when playing through the main game, with its focus on sandbox-oriented gameplay. Vanilla is a bit lacking in bosses, but Dungeons and Legends has a lot more to offer with personality, attacks, music, and more. So in this video, I'll be doing something that no one else on YouTube has done before. I'll be ranking all bosses from the 3 games, even ranking their accompanying themes on the side as well. If you enjoy the video, consider subscribing. To start off, we have the classic Ender Dragon. I'll be honest with this one, the fight is super boring. The only reason you'll take damage or possibly even die here is if you're not paying enough attention or not equipped enough, which even still won't always be a major threat. The idea of taking out the crystals is interesting to be sure, but the dragon is still way too uneventful for a boss, so D tier. The theme is nice, very ethereal and fitting considering the end, but as a boss theme, it doesn't work as well as the rest. But then again, it should be meant to fit any situation, since it is a sandbox game. C tier. Next, we have the furious, destructive amalgam of the Nether. We have the Wither. As a boss, this is a bit of a step up from the dragon. Its destructive nature always makes for a stressful experience if not overly prepared. But apparently Bedrock Edition has a harder Wither fight, which I tried for the first time for this video. Why is he allowed to move? Whoa! Honestly, it's pretty challenging, or I'm bad at Bedrock. But we'll say it's stronger, dashing around, making use of its block-breaking abilities, and even summoning Wither skeletons as backup. B tier. For Minecraft dungeons, we're starting with the Evoker. They summon fangs and vexes to attack, sometimes retreating if the player gets too close for comfort. The boss fight itself is what you would really expect from an Evoker. C tier. But the fight theme, which they share with Illusioners, really matches the two. These high-ranking Illagers with mystical powers. It's a banger of a song. S tier. The Enderman is a lot more iconic as a mob within the Minecraft universe. The stalking feeling, staring you down and clouding your mind with static until you look back or attack, being implied to be the scouts of the End's hierarchy. B tier. They add a little more onto vanilla Enderman, but still what you'd expect for the most part. Their theme, also being shared with the Endersent, is definitely fitting for their fight. Pretty ominous. But it gets a little repetitive. Still, B tier. The 4 Horsemen are unique, being similar to the skeleton horse trap, but a lot more of a surprise to people who might stumble onto them. The fight itself is nothing special. Every time I've crossed paths with them, they've never really been a major hurdle for me personally, usually being taken down pretty quickly. I'd say D tier. They could have been a bit cooler design-wise, but at the end of the day, they're still basic skeletons on horses. What they do have under their belt, though, is their banger of a theme. I don't know about you, but when I listen to this, I can perfectly imagine the Horsemen racing super fast on horseback. I'd say a good A tier. Pretty decent listen. The corrupted Cauldron boss was one of the first bosses I had a decent challenge with the first time around. The design is really unique, showing us a view of something the witches were working on, giving us a small look into witch lore. Apparently not everyone knew it had a face until getting a closer look, which is a neat little detail. Its attacks, as well as throwing out purple slimes to assist it in the fight against the player, are unique too, along with this sound that most Dungeons players will recognize pretty quickly. B tier. If you underestimate this boss, you might not be able to regain your bearings. Its theme, which is shared with the Mooshroom Monstrosity, Jungle Abomination, and the Wretched Wraith, is pretty generic and repetitive. It does its job, but compared to the quality of the others, I'm gonna put it into D tier. The Redstone Golem has a pretty neat design. The first mob, to my knowledge, that has separated fingers on the model. I usually have a love for angry hunchback mobs like these, alongside their lore of guarding the Orb of Dominance, which turns out to be a literal god of sorts, and the uniqueness of its boss fight gives it an easy B tier. Their theme is shared with the Redstone Monstrosity. It's decent for the fight, but it's not too much substance-wise. It does get a little repetitive too, D tier. The Redstone Monstrosity is a lot more powerful as a boss, having more abilities, summoning redstone cubes as backup, looking pretty cool along with its lore pieces, since it shares a similar visage to the Heart of Ender, maybe implying something like it might have planned to have been an external body for the Orb of Dominance, but it's mostly left to interpretation. The sound design is pretty unique as well, so A tier. The Nameless One is an interesting boss, not just with the fight itself, but story implications with any of his appearances, being notably one of the strongest beings we know of. Being powerful enough that in the novel, Archie and the Orb of Dominance, the Heart of Ender, ally with him, instead of attempting to control him and his army like the Illagers. You could have expected such a powerful entity to be a difficult boss, but unless you don't know what you're doing and you're not paying enough attention, it's still relatively difficult with the damage output and abilities used. Even cooler with the lore of the literal king of the undead, he's not truly defeated, as you can hear his laughter echoing throughout the desert temple upon defeat. It makes me wonder, with the immense importance, his way of speaking in the novel, his ability to cheat death, use of spawners, and a staff that may rival the power of the Orb of Dominance that controls mobs. What was I saying? Oh yeah, A tier character and fight. The theme is a bit lackluster, but it makes sense for the situation. A tense, low drone. D tier. The Illager is easily the most fleshed out character within the entire Minecraft universe. A tragic character, forced into a role of harsh rulership by a malevolent entity. A tragic story of an Illager who just wanted a place to call home, with circumstance or further never letting him reach that goal. The boss fight is great, summoning mobs, the way he flies into the arena to start the boss. Then the second phase, where the Heart of Ender manifests an almost projection-like form to do it themselves. Easy S tier. The theme as well is an easy A tier. Parts that sound at home with the militaristic feel of the Illager society. But parts that also emphasize the tragicness of his character as a whole, buried deep beneath. The Mooshroom Monstrosity is interesting. We don't get much on them, but it implies some sort of control has been taken by the fungal organisms over the Redstone Monstrosity. The fight is pretty difficult. I had to kind of cheese my first successful fight with this one. I like the iteration on the design and the mystery around this boss as a whole, but it's not too fleshed out as many others. C tier. The Jungle Abomination has a cool design. A large tree-like monster with a statue being held onto it via roots, acting as an arm. The attacks encompass the other jungle mobs that you have fought leading up to the fight. With the most potent poison in the game, its design and uniqueness, I'd give it a C tier. Illusioners are a decent challenge depending on if you're paying attention to its telegraphed attacks, such as the explosive firework launch ability. Obviously we first saw this mob in Minecraft Java, where it hasn't been worked on since, but I like this new variant of the mob, using a bow and arrow, magic to create fake clones of themselves, attempting to blind the player, and even teleporting. Fun and interesting revival of the Illusioner, which I hope carries over to the main game. B tier. The Wretched Wraith is interesting as a concept. How many times am I going to say interesting? Wearing a crown with one of the shards of the Orb of Dominance placed atop. Their attacks are very unique to what we've seen beforehand within dungeons. The lore of this unstable wraith taking over this Illager base is decently interesting, alongside the other lore within this castle. Solid B tier. The Tempest Golem is extremely distinct, not just through the setting and and look, but gameplay as well. Having to disable its defenses by going through waves as it targets you, slamming its blade arms into the ground. I absolutely love how the banners connected to it resemble a beard of sorts, which helps with the character's vibe overall. Even the lore behind it and the Gale Sanctum as a whole, which is something that has been the focus of some of my major lore theory videos, is very special as well. S tier. Their theme as well is a definite A tier. The intensity whilst keeping the vibe from the entire DLC level is great. Drowned Necromancers are pretty similar to normal skeletal Necromancers from the surface, just with a bit more health and themed attacks, like lightning strikes, volleys of energy, and summoning other drowned to their aid. Their lore isn't extended too much from their existence. I don't really recall fighting them, mostly because of their semi-forgettability. D tier. Also, they don't have a fight theme, just like this next boss. Elder Guardians. They're pretty disappointing in the context of a boss, doing the exact same thing as normal Guardians, on top of what I think is them summoning Guardians in, just with more health. I do have a bit of a soft spot for their design, but I assume that's mostly from nostalgia. F tier. When removed out of the main game, they kind of lose all functional purpose. Also, there's not anything they add to my knowledge to the lore, just that there's bigger Guardians. If we were to count so-called bosses, like the Raid Captain, Vindicator, and Pillager, as well as the Treetop Whisperer, they fall into the same issue. F tier all around for these three. I guess if I'm ranking them, then I should also rank the Raid Captain theme as well. It's alright, but nothing special and pretty repetitive. D tier. The Ancient Guardian, though, is kind of in the middle. On one hand, its story relevance and what it brings to the table, showing us the anger it's presumably given through the shard, is interesting, alongside its apparent sudden interest with expanding its territory upon coming into contact with it. Whilst its gameplay is more so the same to Guardians, with more defensive abilities and summoning in Guardians, Elder Guardians, and Biomines, which act as pretty fun obstacles that explode into a cloud of poison, bit of a better step up. So it just makes it into C tier because of the unique design and story. Their theme though, you can really feel the anger it has, smashing through the wall of the very monument it was made to protect. I really like this one. S tier. Ghasts are an interesting placement into dungeons as a boss. Depending on your difficulty, a direct hit from a Ghast's fireball can be the end of you. Like in Minecraft, it doesn't do too much, but it isn't like the Elder Guardian where other enemies do the exact same thing. They retreat and descend to the player's level. I'd say C tier. It doesn't do much, but when you go against it, the Ghast can become a challenge to fight, depending on your circumstance. Their theme is nice to listen to, starting off eerie and intimidating, rising and getting a bit more emotional. With the ending of the song becoming sad as it fades away after being slain. B tier. I'm so glad Dungeons added Wildfires, the only mob from the 2017 mob vote that I actually wanted, and they do not disappoint. Launching barrages of shield debris at the player, slamming into the ground to create a shockwave to knock back players, summoning blazes as backup, and something I really like, when it loses its shields, it cowardly tries to flee from the attacker, healing itself on fire and regenerating its shields. A fun fight to be sure. B tier. Its theme for some reason gives me Pokemon vibes at the start. It's pretty solid. It just doesn't feel too nethery. C tier. The Endersent, including the 6 eyes, are extremely integral to the overall lore. The naming conventions being similar to Godsent, their status in the end, their abilities, their appearance in Disc 5, and more. Their fights are always fun, with each eye having different enchantments. Their downward swing being devastating if not anticipated. Their presence in their introductory scene is the most memorable part of Dungeons for me. Easy A tier. The Vengeful Heart of Ender is great as the final boss of Dungeons. From the insane design, the fire, the totem pole neck connected to its centipede-like body, the sounds it makes, the attacks and more. This really does feel like the final boss, the true end of the journey. This boss, alongside the Endersent, is the entire reason I got back into Dungeons. I shouldn't have to say much else. Easy S tier. The theme as well is a perfect encapsulation of the end and the boss as a whole. It's perfect for the fight, as well as being a good listen. S tier again. Moving on to legends, we'll start with the Beast, the least focused of the 4 ancient piglins. Their personality, alongside the Unbreakable and Devourer, have been shown a lot more in this game compared to dungeons, which is something I really like. With every major base taken down, letting the player tune into what they're doing in that moment. With the third base being taken down, the final straw, forcing them into confrontation with the player. They kind of give off the vibe of an almost angsty teen compared to the others, whacking one of their troops away when they're trying to inform them, not following the orders from the seer, only begrudgingly giving up their hunt as their third base is about to fall, and their explosive entrance into the overworld. Their explosive energy and design makes the Beast a really fun character. Easy A tier. And their theme, being connected to the Villager Attack soundtrack piece, like a more aggressive version of the Horde of the Hunt soundtrack, really nailing that this is the ferocious leader of the most aggressive horde from the Nether. S tier theme. The Unbreakable is described as a power-hungry and arrogant opportunist. Easily the most ambitious of the 4. Still aggressive in their own way, but more calculating. They're the only of the Horde leaders that's shown constantly contributing to the war with the overworld. Sending off troops, brutally demolishing their own troops, and even testing out their arm cannon before going off to the overworld. Their bases echo this as well, being extremely fortified, whilst Hunt's bases are more open and Spore's being more high up. On top of that, them being implied as the creator of the Bastions is a neat lore piece. I'd say good A tier. Their theme isn't as explosive as the Beasts, but it still is a cool listen and fits the character. Really helping the visual of crawling up towards the Unbreakable, going past walls, lava moats, and their defenses. A tier. I'll try not to let my bias towards the Devourer affect their fairness and ranking, but they are an A tier like the other 2. They're a lot more laid back as a leader, but still semi-active. When their eating and their soup bath is interrupted, they send troops out to fix issues, until their hand is forced, struggling to squeeze through the portal. Fun character, just like the other 3. Their theme as well perfectly encompasses the Devourer. Like the choir tuning in, mirroring the almost godlike worship their horde gives them, as well as the slow climb up the towering peaks their horde created for them. S tier song, always a great listen. And finally, as our last to rank for now, we have the Great Hog, the purple-scarred, rage-filled king of the Nether. After all 3 of his piglin horde leaders being taken out, setting off to the Well of Fate. Enchanted portal-fused staff in hand to single-handedly destroy the Well of Fate. The sky goes dark orange and red. His very presence is taking over the overworld. Running to the center of this newly placed fortress, you're met with a blood-curdling roar as the Great Hog jumps down to fight you. When I had my first playthrough, I was super hyped to fight this boss, expecting it to be the biggest challenge of the game. Then the First of Brick's AI decided to break and proceeded to run into the Great Hog, pushing him outside of the arena and basically making him defenseless. With such a cool design, portrayal and cutscenes, especially with that laugh in the intro, it's a really disappointing fight. The surrounding structures are super easy to waltz on past. I feel as if they could have done more. C tier. Still a super cool and threatening character, but just very wasted potential in execution, and how we don't really see him until the end of the game. I kind of forgot about him until that pre-boss cutscene. Hopefully a possible story DLC will let us battle the Seer, and in turn the Orb of Dominance again does this justice. But for the theme, pretty good. It fits so well for the situation. The final challenge, the final obstacle, the final boss. A tier once again. Thank you for watching.
I'm just gonna freeball this. The original video I was not happy with, so I've decided to unlist it. It's still, I've linked it in the description if you really want to look at the original one. There's a lot of comments. Thank you everyone who, you know, all the support. It got 14k views. That's insane. I kept looking back at it and just thinking, I'm not happy with this. Because I rushed it, I didn't check if the intro was working, and I even included the wrong dragon theme. I'll include some interesting comments on screen right now, while I'm talking. I really like seeing all of your opinions and, you know, little factoids that you guys give me. So if you've watched the whole video again, thank you a lot. It's less about having content out and more just being happy with having something that I'm proud of out there. So I hope you all understand. Back to the video.
Thank you for watching. Do you agree with my ranking? Did I miss any bosses? Before anyone says, I'm mainly sticking to the main lore-relevant Minecraft games, and story mode doesn't really count. But if it did, Witherstorm would be S tier and its theme in A tier. I got antagonists to be sure. I didn't care much more about story mode after it got defeated. I've wanted to try a video like this for a bit now, so let me know if you liked it and if I should do more. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you in another video. But until then, have a good day or night.